Hey, welcome to Terry's Doing It, Carpe Diem. Today, in part one, you'll hear from Kim Frank, an Idaho writer and documentary filmmaker, a Jersey girl living in the mountains of Sun Valley, and a world traveler, too. I can't wait for you to meet her. Hey,
Okay.
Kim, nice to see you.
Hi, Terry. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. The context for this series is that um, we are people, we are writers, we are different things who have had some measure of success in the way we've
Mm,
done things in the past, but it hasn't been how we wanted to do things. And so I'm
mm,
featuring people who create, we call them new boats, ways to connect with
I love
people,
that. Yeah.
with new ways of doing it. So I really see that in your
Oh,
background, and we're going to get
thank
to that.
you.
But first of all, so glad to have you here.
I'm
Who
so happy
is
to be
Kim Frank?
here. According to me,
Yeah, yeah.
ah, I see myself sometimes like a kaleidoscope. Um, I think at my very root, I'm somebody who is wildly curious, who pursues my curiosity to define how I live my life. And I've been very fortunate to that's worked out overwhelmingly on the positive side. So far, so good.
That's a
um, I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller. I'm now learning how to make a documentary film because I'm completely passionate. Kind of on a quest to which we'll talk about later. I'm a mom. Uh, my my heart and soul are my two daughters, and my I actually have two stepchildren that I call my bonus children. And so I'm a mom and a wife and partner, really partner to my husband. So all these things. I guess I'm also now an explorer. And it's, you try on these different names, labels, I think, but at the very heart of my essence, I'm somebody who loves life, who really cares about making a difference in the world and using my voice to do that.
I love that. Let's start back in New Jersey. You are also a self-described Jersey girl, and
Yes, I am proud of
I
it.
asked you, I asked you to send to share with us, set it up, and then
Mhm.
read a portion from your short piece, Jersey Girl.
I wrote Jersey Girl a long time ago, right when just while I was in graduate school still for my MFA in creative fiction. Um, and it began with a sound, a beat, a sound, and a rhythm. And I wanted to get at this. I originally thought I was writing it. I originally thought I was kind of writing it about my mother who um, had come to South Jersey is where we're from, and at the time it was very desolate in the winter. And my family owns my family. I'm third generation family owned motels along the Jersey Shore. I grew up in the back office apartment of a motel right on the ocean, and in the wintertime, nobody was ever there. In fact, I described it as gray fucking gray, and that it was kind of this winter depression time, but in the summer it was this vibrant, amazing, magical place filled with friends and activities and all the things. But in the winter it was very a different place altogether. And so I originally kind of wrote it about that and about, I guess, my mom living there and having to move from a vibrant place to raising children in a motel. Um, and then I realized years later, actually, bizarrely, I realized that I was actually writing about myself in my own marriage. And, um, I'm no longer in that marriage. But it's an interesting thing as a writer, how you can write from the deepest place of you and still not even realize, especially if you're a fiction writer, that you're actually tapping into something you're not fully aware yet yourself. So it's kind of a long answer, but I will happily read one of the sections. I really do love this story. So
Yeah, go for it. I love it.
okay. Earlier that day, she and Viv had hiked all the way down to the wharf where they sat on a bench and ate some chowder. Ivar's because someone had said so. The sticky salt air covered their skin. Her phone rang for the fourth time since she arrived. "Do you miss me?" Joe said. She pictured him running his rough hand through his thick black hair, feet shuffling along the linoleum. He was short of breath from pacing. "I might, if you stopped calling so much," she said. Viv's thin waxed brows formed a V, like a child's bird drawing. Ruby laughed a little to show she was just teasing. Behind them, a fishing trawler was docking. Seagulls swarmed along the nets. Their cries were different out here. "What? You're breaking up." "Shitty reception. Sorry, hon." Ruby hung up and stuck the phone deep into her black backpack where she knew it would ring again, muffled under her sweater, rain slicker, and the conference program. "That was a bit cold, don't you think?" Viv picked a stray thread from her sweater dress, unraveled it. "What?" Viv was turning out to be a real pain in the ass. "How you talk to Joe? He's so sweet to you. It's like you don't even appreciate it." "Well, you know what they say about too many sweets." "At least Candy doesn't call you a bitch and leave a bruise on your face," Viv said. "You should be grateful." "I would be." She tore the strand. The seagulls were screeching. Deep, rowdy voices shouted instructions, a bellowing air horn. "Do you know what happens when you leave a piece of raw meat in a Coke can?" Ruby said. "No idea." "It disappears."
Well, I I just think that the context of that and the understanding of what that all means to the story, which is very central, is so meaningful and so deep. And I really enjoyed the story. You do still consider yourself a Jersey girl?
Always. I drive an old FJ40 Land Cruiser from 1974, and when I first got it, I personalized the license plate, and it says OC and the number 2 SV Sun Valley, Ocean City to Sun Valley, because I've always considered myself, a Jersey girl in a mountain town. Well, when COVID hit, all these Californians came to Sun Valley, and I've been here since 1993 now, and people would stop me and say, "Oh, I'm from Orange County too," and I was like, "What?" So I took a Jersey sticker with Bruce Springsteen's Jersey Girl lyrics on it, and I stuck it. If I was allowed to, I would have stuck it right on my license plate, but I stuck it as close as possible next to the license plate so people would know. I mean, I am a proud Jersey girl.
Awesome. Well, I think the way that I connected with you was through Bruce Springsteen. We were at the Travel Writers and Photographers Conference, and every one of them has a karaoke night. And
Yes.
we were sitting watching the men who are very conscious, very sensitive men, ordinary, but they declared that they were going to go up and sing Born to Run,
Yeah.
and it was just for men.
Yeah.
And you said, do you
I don't
remember what you said? We don't have to repeat it here, but I thought, this girl is okay.
Yeah, that was, I was kind of like, wait.
Well, so
Oh,
out of type for those guys because they're
I
all
know.
very sensitive. But
It's really
anyway,
true.
I've been telling them next year we're doing it. And you weren't
Dorman,
there last year, but
yeah.
if you're there this year, we'll do
I
it.
hope to be there this year. I definitely want to be there next year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great. We both live in Idaho, but we have
Yes.
never seen each other in Idaho. So is it
I
California?
know. I
Yeah,
can't. And you live in my old neighborhood.
I
It's
do. I
amazing. It's
do.
amazing.
I do. Well, I'm coming to Sun Valley in June, so maybe we'll go
Oh,
have
good.
lunch.
Yes,
Yeah.
that'd be wonderful. Yeah,
Okay.
at the very least.
Well, so you're highly educated. You
Mm,
have a master of social work. You have a master's in fine arts. That's
mm-hmm,
your fictional writing.
mm-hmm.
Um, you're a world traveler and you're a world changer. We're going to get to that. But let me kind of run down these things because I suspect that you're not the type that wants to intone about your accomplishments.
Thank
But
you.
I want people to understand. Yeah. So you've written a book that hopefully will be published in January of 25.
Mm-hmm,
It's called Elephants in the Hourglass, A Journey of Reckoning and Hope Among the Himalaya. You've collaborated with photographers Paul Nicklin. You also ghost wrote Leonard
mm-hmm.
DiCaprio's foreword to that book.
For that book. Mm-hmm.
You helped Christina Mittermeier with her book. You've written more than 40 nonfiction articles. You've been an editor with the Sun Valley. What does that acronym stand
It's
for?
SVPN. It's a lifestyle, and it's like a lifestyle magazine that comes out every month, actually, in Sun
So
Valley.
it's the one when we visit Sun Valley, we find it lying on a beautiful piece of
Yeah.
furniture. We look at it. We love the photos,
Yeah.
everything. That
Mm.
that was you for a lot of years, right?
For a lot of years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so we talked about your fiction thing, but I'm really interested. Why did you want to write in the first place? What was your dream when you first started?
Hmm. The first thing I think of, well, I guess I wanted to write very young. I, I had a haiku in the school newsletter when I was in kindergarten. I had written it about a bird and the sun. Um, so I think at a very young age, and I remember writing a short story about the little fir tree, and and then I was at my grandparents' house, and I remember I wrote it all out. I spent the whole afternoon writing it, and then I walked downstairs and proudly showed everybody. And for some reason, who knows, they're probably in the middle of a conversation, but the response was kind of like, "Oh, that's nice," and I went upstairs and ripped it apart. And then, I mean, it was very strange. And I kept a journal my whole life. I kept journals. And then when I wanted to make change, I wanted to be a change agent for good. And I guess I never, honestly, it didn't really dawn on me. I was a voracious reader. For some reason, I just didn't make the connection that I could be an actual writer. I could do that. I could study it and do that and write. I kind of shoved it away while I built a career, and I really followed a path of wanting to make change. And so for a long time, it lay dormant, but I used my writing. I mean, I wrote journals all the time, and then I used my writing to uh, make change, but in the context of my profession at the time. When my children were young, I I had left my career to take care full time of the girls. I realized, oh, I have an opportunity now to go back to this deep, deep love that my journals were filled with. Someday I'm going to do this. Someday I'm going to do this. And at the time, I mistakenly felt like, I think this is really important. And it's stemming a little way from your question maybe, but uh, I felt called to write, and it was something I couldn't not do, both poetry, fiction, nonfiction, right. But without a structure, without deadlines, without something to write towards, I would get very discouraged with myself for feeling like you're not a writer, or you have to discipline yourself more so you can write every day. But it really took learning the craft and committing to actually having a structure that made that transition for me.
Let's go back to your career. I don't want to talk a lot about it, but
Yeah.
it wasn't just any old career. You got a master in social work. You were a fellow who spent
Mm-hmm.
significant time in DC. You had I don't know if it was with the first 5 in Idaho, but you were an accomplished person in that career.
Yes. I was driven to make change. When I was in college, after college, I worked at a childcare and a preschool of very young children. And I had worked with young children as a swimming teacher for a long time, but I saw very quickly that how deeply flawed the childcare system is in this country, lack of childcare system, and how difficult it was for families to figure out a way to have quality early childhood education and care. I became devoted to, honestly, I wanted to change that system. I wanted to be part of fixing that system. So I spent the rest, probably the next 10 years, working towards that. So I went to graduate school for a I have an MSW, but the focus was in social policy and change. And um, and then I had moved out here to Idaho. And so I was kind of starting from scratch again, but I clawed my way back through, won that fellowship, and then worked for Stand for Children and became a leader in that. And I really was making a significant impact actually with my team, with the people that I was working with nationally, and I was leading a lot. I was a leader in that movement, and then I made the decision that I adopted both. We adopted both of our daughters, and I said that I need to stand for my own children right now because they need me. So I left.
I would love to go into that. I think we probably know some of the same people. I was involved in the foster care movement here in
Oh,
Idaho.
yeah.
Good friends with Lori Facilla, if you know her, of Giraffe Laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Oh, my gosh.
oh, yeah,
They were a team. They were
yeah, she's
Lori.
wonderful. I'm going to feature her
Oh,
because
my
she too is a
gosh.
real change maker. So yeah,
She
stay tuned for
is.
that one of these
Giraffe
days.
Laugh had one of our strong teams. Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, well, we did a lot of good work in Boise, but yeah,
Yes, more to explore. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I guess the point that I really I wanted to paint a picture of. Some people say if you can't do, you write, but there are some of us who do very successfully. But there's always writing that is calling us, that is
Mhm.
compelling us. And so you certainly have your share of awards. You've won an award from the Society of Environmental Journalists,
Mhm.
the Travel Writers and Photographers Conference Suitcase Awards. Um, Recently, though, you're part of the Explorers,
Mhm.
and you carried the Rolex and the flag to India. Um,
It's like a
not
huge, like, what?
So we're going to get to how that happened, but the point I want to make is that you're kind of a big deal, you know,
Mm.
and but you don't act like it, and that's what I love about you. Um, so I won't go into a lot of how you got from Boise to Sun Valley
Yeah.
because I think your story
Yes.
probably, that kind of explains it. Um, but what do your daughters?
Mm.
I'm adopted. You took these beautiful children into your life. What do you
Mm.
dream for your daughters now?
Mm. Now I'm gonna
Oh,
cry.
sorry. This is interview gold, by the way.
I know. Oh, they're both on spring break right now, and well, actually, Goldie. So they, yeah, they're in movement. We're all in movement. Um, I'm just gobsmacked at you have these babies and you give, as a mom, like you give every part of yourself, right? Your whole body physically, even if you didn't give birth, your brain every night. There's not a moment. Sorry. There's not a moment when, people often say like, oh, you're traveling so much or you're doing all this stuff and how are your kids? And my kids are amazing. Like they are so cool and so great and so full of all the things I could have ever hoped for them. What do I want for them? My mom has a saying that you're only as happy as your least happy child.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I think I just want my daughters to experience joy every day, somewhere, somehow. At least part of that day has joy. I want them to mostly, I hope most of all, that I've modeled for them that you can be a strong, deeply committed mom and also follow your dreams. That if you don't have to give up being who you are so that you can be a mother, and you don't have to give up being a mother so that you can follow your dreams. And I don't know where they'll be or where they'll go with their career. They're both in college right now and um, thriving, and that feels amazing, just amazing. And I have a lot of emotion around it because we've been through some pretty challenging relational, like divorce is no fun.
Yeah.
And as much as I've fought heroically to try and keep, them completely out of that, not, you can't control what happens in the other house. So,
Right. Well, the first thing that you said that you wanted for him was joy.
yeah.
And frankly, watching you with your husband, David Concannon, I see a lot of joy.
So much joy.
There's a story there too. I mean, how did that happen?
So I am I feel, I used to not laugh. I'm a cynic when it comes to the term soulmate, and I'm like, oh, my soulmate. I have come to believe with all my heart, body, and soul that my destiny is truly that I'm connected to David, connected beyond years, beyond this lifetime even, and um, we met when we were he was in college, I was in high school. We were swimming instructors at my parents' hotel. I have his old letters from when I first met him. I found them in a trunk. I had saved them all these years, and they were very sweet. He had sent me a drawing to pin up on my wall. We were both, we were best friends. He taught me about the Bourne identity. I read all the books, and then, he had a Jeep, and so that made me want a Jeep. And then I would see him various times after that. Like, I mean, I had a huge crush on him that my whole family knew about, and I carried I ran into him maybe 6 years after we had lost touch. We ran into each other, and he was off to Africa or to study at The Hague, and he just when I talked to him, it was in a parking lot of I think it was a parking lot of a liquor store. Like we were both young in college, graduate. I was about to start graduate school, and he shared something with me. He right away, we reconnected. This isn't even how we reconnected, but we reconnected right away. Went into our deep friendship talking, and he said like, "Oh, I'm about to clerk for this judge, and I really want the clerkship, and everyone is telling me like I shouldn't. I bet I got accepted to The Hague in this program. It's a really big program. and I don't know what to do. And I was like, you just have to go for it. You have to do the Hague. And I remember leaving that little conversation thinking, when the time for the rest of my adult life, every choice I made, like the choice to apply for the DC fellowship, that was because of Dave. It was because he took the road not taken. And I thought, I admired him so much because he said yes to things that people would be afraid to say yes to. And that seemed like jumping off a cliff. And that wasn't the easy yes. And I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be like him. And so that day he handed me a torn off piece of paper, and it said, his name and phone number. Here, call me. I put it in my wallet. Life took over for him and for me. And I drove out to Idaho with his little number. And I remember the day I finally threw it away. I was cleaning out my wallet and I was like, well, this is never going to happen. And I threw it away. Years later, when I was going through my separation, I saw this kind of ticker tape on my head with his name on it. And so it was like the weirdest thing. It just was like his name was typed on a small white piece of paper. So I started looking for him and I found him on a day when he really needed to be found. And we just picked up our friendship like it was never, like we were still by the pool. And he's been he's come to, I joke that I've imported him. He gave up, he's transferred his office and, relocated here. And he's been a huge champion for my freedom, my growth, my everything. And now look, I'm looking at this right now. The brown paper bag. This is a gift he gave. Like he actually gave me a really special gift in here. A vintage watch, but yes, that was. But when I see his handwriting on a piece of paper, I thought, and I'm never throwing this one away.
The thing that I love, he is so self-deprecating. It's like you are this goddess that he could never aspire to you, and you've graced him with your presence. And I mean, but don't we all want to be loved like that?
Yes, and I just hope, and I feel like I do, that I can shower him with this deep love and affection and worth that he has. He has truly freed me. I mean, restored me back to the person I was meant to be.
That is
Truly.
such a great story.
Yeah.
Not often do those high school romances reunited turn out quite so well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you deserve
Yeah.
that.
I'm
And,
lucky. Thank you.
and
We work
apparently,
hard for it, and we work hard,
yeah.
but it's a gift. It's a gift.
So I have seen that you have written a little bit in his interest too, in
Mm-hmm.
sea exploration field.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's toot David's horn a little
Yeah.
bit. He is not just doing divorces and family law.
Oh God, he hates doing
What does he do? What does David
that.
do, and for whom? I mean, you don't
It's
have to
a
give names, but
no. It's the funniest thing because I'm encouraging him that his standard answer when someone asks what he does, he says, "I solve problems," and I'm like, dude, that makes you sound like you're a mafia. He's like,
right.
well, whatever you
Oh,
want
I'm
to say,
from New
but
Jersey.
yeah, but he is such a mentor to me because what he's done is he's followed his interest and created a career out of the law that intersects with exploration. And so in the early days, he was a clerk for a judge. And doing that, I'm in awe of some of the decisions that he wrote while he was in that role. Like he helped protect, I'm going to botch it, but he protected, an entire forest in California because he was able to prove that the birds were actually, coming. But in any event, there are all these like seminal cases that he has been a part of. And then he just really wanted to practice law the way he wanted to practice law. And he had studied in The Hague and he had studied in Africa. And He got involved with the Explorers Club. And then I think one of the biggest pivotal points is that he won on behalf of some scientists and explorers the right to explore Titanic for science and to have intellectual property gathered and science gathered at the Titanic, which then kickstarted a whole career of him leading Titanic expeditions, him advising people at the highest level, really, who are interested in deep ocean exploration. And of note, he found and recovered the Apollo rocket engines for Bezos' expeditions and led that entire process for a few years, did that entire process. And now, if you go to the Seattle Museum of Flight, you can see there's an exhibition there, and some of David's work is in there as well. So,
well, I'm so impressed by all that he's done, and it's my understanding that he was to be on the submersible that day. And I don't, lots has been
yeah.
written, people have all their opinions, but I'm curious about the impact on him and you as a couple to go through that experience. And how have you moved? Well, I can't ever really move past, but how have you reconciled it?
So we were introduced to Ocean Gate early on in their development stage of the Titan and Titan II. Dave is amazingly generous about bringing me along as, a potential writer, or, Kim's I work for him in the firm, so I can I have that flexibility. So we went together to meet Stockton and the team. And then because he has so much experience, both with navigating the international permitting and helping to, from a legal standpoint, also he understands the site very well. So he came on board for a short period of time as an advisor to Stockton and to Ocean Gate as it related to Titanic. Fast forward, we went out together on the first expedition, and I was writing a story about it. It was thrilling to be out there. They were doing a series, but I was there for the very first day, and Dave was there to kind of, just problem solve, troubleshoot, help assist where needed. And it was amazing. I interviewed Stockton extensively. I really felt strongly with every fiber of my being that he's an innovator, that the technology he was creating, for all the right reasons and for all the was not only innovative but effective, that it was actually working. And then they, through the course of their time, they had 17 successful dives. There's far more to be said that's not being said out in public, that's really positive, that's not, but this feels like a tidal wave of one belief and of people who weren't on the inside of it. And so that's been difficult. So I guess, so this last trip, David was scheduled to go. In fact, I can still hear Stockton's voice saying to him, we were in New York. Dave had a court case. So he was like, it's a lot. I'm going to go. And I have this other case going, but I just want to make sure, because he was put in as a Titanic expert, so a content expert. So he wasn't going as a mission specialist; he was being brought in as a content expert. So PH was one of the content experts. Rory Golden was one of the content experts, and then Dave was one of the content experts. But each time he'd gone out, the dive just didn't happen. So he said, "Look, if if the dive's not going to happen, or if I'm not going to get a dive, it doesn't make sense for me to come out. And I could still hear Stockton saying, "You're going to be on the first dive we do. I'm committing to that. I promise you that." And so, a few things had happened leading up to it that Dave and I see this differently. We see it the same and we see it differently. I'm a much more signs from the universe person. I'm deeply kind of connected to just listening to, seeing, hearing the things we cannot see necessarily, or the intangible things. And there were many signs for him to not go. And he was in not sure. But then there was such a draw, because the Titanic has this absolutely insane magnet draw that is hard to understand. The Sunday morning at the end, right before he was scheduled for Tuesday to leave, everything was set. The Sunday morning before he was scheduled to leave, he doesn't remember this now, but I remember it. He woke up with a voice saying, "Don't go." And I, who had been, we support each other's dreams. So I had been like, "Look, it'll be fine. Just go, blah, blah, blah." That morning, I was like, "You're not going. You're not." So that little section is my story. There were a number of other things. There were, this court case that it was just reaching ahead that made it really difficult for him to do it. And then there were some concerns that he had that he's just like, I'm not going to do it. So he pulled the plug. And then the morning that he was supposed to have his dive, the first dive they did that morning, of course, he had total FOMO. So we were, glued to the comms to our friends who were out on the ship. How's it going? What's happening now? And then it was Father's Day. I think it was Father's Day. We were downstairs having dinner. David left his phone upstairs so he could be fully present. And when we came back upstairs, there was a call from Wendy saying the sub hasn't come up, and he was calling Dave for help. What should we do? So we spent the next 48 hours. The most tragic thing, well, there's so many tragic things. One of the most upsetting things is that we did receive the information about the implosion happening, but the families and Wendy were not told, and the Navy never confirmed it on TV. And so we grieved it when we heard it, and then we kicked into action. So when they set the recovery team out, we spent the next 48 hours desperately trying to find a recovery. We had a recovery. It's just such a convoluted, long story, but in the agony was believing that those 96 minutes that they were in the sub, and that we were being thwarted we had basically clearance all the way up from the Oval Office, clearing the rescue effort that we had put together, and it got thwarted. So it was a horrible roller coaster, such that I didn't even really have time to think about, oh my God, Dave could have been there. We are both now kind of, each of us individually, having different grief reactions from it. And we both see a therapist, and we're both not just for this, but it's been so we've been working our way through it. That was a long answer, but there's no way to make that a short answer. It's something that I went to pack I went to pack for my trip and, digging through all my clothes, and I have all this Ocean Gate stuff. And there was just so much hope and so much success that they did have. And I cared deeply for Stockton and his vision. And so to then have it be an international tragedy with so much hatred and speculation and really well respected people who are afraid of losing their own careers, coming out with such vitriol, it was devastating to yeah. So I've kind of withdrawn from it completely, and Dave has carried on as trying to be a voice. So now I think we both are wanting space.